I think it was Henry Ford that said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right. Well, my guest today rephrases that into mindset is money, which is really memorable and shorter than what Henry Ford said, and I think at least as impactful. And he's going to share what he thinks about that, what that means, and give us some good advice about it. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of PracticeCare. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. Not only is that what they want, but care is better when the provider owns the practice, because that's when they're going to have the most freedom to make the clinical decisions they think is best for you. When they're owned by somebody else, usually, eventually, the owner's agenda creeps in and nobody ever really gets hurt, but it certainly causes some more work and maybe a bit of confusion. So let's just get all that out of the way, help the private practice owner stay private. And today, my guest is Dr. Jamey Schrier. He's the best-selling author, speaker, and CEO of Practice Freedom U, that's the letter U, a business training and coaching company designed for physical therapists. Jamey is a former private practice owner, and his book, The Practice Freedom Method, has helped scores of practitioners treat less, earn more, and enjoy the life they deserve. Since he sold his practice, he began teaching other practice owners and their teams his proven business building methodology to help them create successful private practices. Jamey has helped hundreds of private practice owners successfully grow their business, achieving financial prosperity and freedom, and is on a mission to help hundreds, if not thousands more. Jamey, thanks for coming on PracticeCare.
Carl, thank you so much. So glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm very curious about this one because we talked before we started recording. There's a few questions down where I'm going to ask you a question. I'll bet you I'm going to check a lot of the same boxes. So it'll be eye-opening for all of us listening.
Sure.
I want to start, where I start with every guest. Your bio that I just read is necessarily short for the intro, but I want to help us get to know you better. And I'm curious, why you made the switch into coaching. Career changes are always interesting. Why you took the successful practices that you had built and threw it all away to start the world of coaching. So help us out.
Yeah. So my quick backstory is, went into business, always wanted to go have my own business. Started it with my fiance at the time, my wife now, Colleen. And I was, the doctor in the back doing the thing, and she was a smiley blonde in the front doing her thing. And for the first little bit, it was great. I mean, I was like, why are people business is great. This is easy. People were coming in mostly by word of mouth.
Yeah.
I was doing my thing, treating who I wanted, how I wanted, not listening to anybody else.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. And then, of course, you start to grow and you hire people and you realize it's not as good because people, you and I made a joke before, like, I think everyone thinks like me.
Yeah.
So, well, guess what? Not everyone thinks like me. Not everyone acts like me. Not everyone shows up to work on time, or sometimes not at all without a call. And things started to get really stressful.
Yeah.
And as we continued to grow, what I realized is I was actually putting in more and more hours, making less and less money because I was paying out so much in salaries and overhead costs. And I was becoming like not happy. And frankly, I was miserable. And I started to look in the mirror and I go, dude, this is not what you signed up for. It's supposed to be fun. This is your own business. No one told me it was going to be like this hard. So, make a long story short, I started to investing a lot of time and money and energy. There was a fire thrown in there too, which was a fun story. My whole place burned down.
Yeah.
That was a reset button for sure.
Yeah.
And I realized that I didn't know what I was doing. So as I started investing in coaches and business coaches and programs, I started applying it to my problems. And some things worked, a lot didn't, but I just said, I'm going to keep doing this because I can't go back to the way it was. Fast forward 9 years after I started doing that in 2013, I just innocently, someone said, hey, what you did is really cool. Why don't you go on, that wasn't a podcast, it was a webinar. So I went on a webinar, never done a webinar before. And it was called something like what you can learn from McDonald's, right?
Okay.
About processes and systems and stuff. So I did a 45-minute webinar for the Private Practice Association in physical therapy. And I had 4 people reach out to me. They said, can you help me? And I went, I don't know. I'm not.
Did you even say, I'm here to help people? Or they just said on their own? Yeah.
No, I didn't have a call to action. I didn't have any ploy. I didn't have any pitch. They just said, if people are interested in learning more, I go, I don't know, just tell them to email me. That was all I
Hmm.
said.
Hmm.
So they reached out to me, and I was like, well, I do love to help people. That's, one of my passions, one of my unique abilities.
Hmm.
So I said, sure, I'll help you. And I kind of made up a price, which was, you know, not very much money.
Right.
I just started coaching them,
Hmm.
and I loved it. Carl, I
Hmm.
fell in love with it. I was like, man, this is what I'm born to do. They loved it.
Hmm.
They started accelerating their businesses 100 times faster than I did. It took me 9 years. They were doing it in weeks and in months. And I'm like, what if I built a business on this coaching business? I didn't know anything about it. None of
Hmm.
them were like lived here. I
Hmm.
lived in Maryland. They were all over the country. So now I had to understand this whole digital world, internet world.
Hmm.
And that's how it all started.
Hmm.
So that's how I made that shift. It was like an accident.
So were you still in private practice when you started it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So when I actually did the McDonald's webinar, as I call it,
Yeah.
um, I had two locations.
Hmm.
Opening up a third location, I was working, quote, literally in the business
Hmm.
maybe 2 hours a week. And before everyone says that's BS, think about it.
Yeah.
I had front desk people handling that. I had a marketing person handling the initial marketing stuff. I helped out a little bit. I
Hmm.
had a billing company handle my billing. I had great therapists. I had great aides. What did I actually physically need to do in the business?
That's the whole point.
So,
Yeah.
but
Whether
the
it's
people
2 hours or
don't,
5 hours, that's the point.
right? So people that are in there doing all that don't see that
Yeah.
as there was a time that I didn't either.
Yeah.
So there was really nothing for me to do except support my team and to continue to connect with people outside of the business, looking for business, building relationships. So I had lots of time.
Hmm.
So I just started looking at, well, what else am I interested in doing? And I didn't really know what to do except for add locations to my practice, which I wasn't really interested in doing. But I thought that was the only thing you're supposed to do, is just keep adding locations and have a pissing contest with the next person about how many locations you have. But
Right.
it didn't inspire me.
Hmm.
But when I started getting the coaching, I was like, this is really cool.
Okay.
So that's kind of how all of that started.
And you've since sold the practices?
Yeah, so a couple of years into coaching, I hired another coach to help because I didn't know anything about coaching. So
Hmm.
I hired a coach to help me create a coaching business.
Hmm.
So as I was doing that, I was putting a ton of time into doing that. Um, I became less emotionally connected to my business. Like
Okay.
I didn't have a strong desire. So I put it on the market. I hired an M&A company,
Hmm.
and it wasn't like it is now. It didn't sell over a weekend. It was on the market for 18 months. And then finally, out of the blue, they called me up, and they gave me like 6 or 7 people before them, but they weren't the right kind of company. So
Hmm.
then all of a sudden, the person, they reached me out, they hooked me up with, they seemed to be the right fit. 90 days later, after an initial conversation, I sold it.
Wow. Wow.
It went all in into my side hustle business,
Right.
coaching,
Right. And how long has the coaching business been alive?
since 2013.
So 10 years. 10 years this year.
Believe it or not, our
Wow.
10th
Happy
year
anniversary.
anniversary right now.
Absolutely.
Going on 11 years in
Cool.
early next year.
And you survived a pandemic, so let's take the win, you know?
Survived the pandemic, survived putting all my eggs into now coaching, was
Yeah.
going to fit my salary. I mean, I was making good money with my other business. All of
Hmm.
a sudden, that's all gone. And for people that are wanting to sell their business, look, I don't care how much you sell it for. The financial advisor comes along. Well, first of all, Uncle Sam takes a huge chunk. Then the
Mm.
financial advisor says, oh, you got to put it in all these places. So at the end of the day, you're still left with nothing. Like you still don't have any money really coming in
Yeah.
unless you have some passive, real estate or whatever.
Hmm.
So I was now basing everything on this new venture. And this new venture was not yet giving me the money I needed that
Hmm.
my other business was giving me. So it was a hell of a risk.
Because four randoms reached out to you one day and said, "Can you please help me?" And there it is.
Four people. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to be the kind of person who, you know, long believed that mindset is money, mindset matters. For you to, I know a lot of people out there, there's single doc practices of whatever stripe and they're happy with it. You were different, you grew, you made this massive change. So mindset matters. But when did you first start to realize mindset is money, to pick on the
Yeah.
phrase?
When I hired a coach to help me, so I hired someone that, could help me with my PT business.
Hmm.
I started reading books, and books help you think differently.
Hmm.
So the way to change your mindset is you read. Well, there's a lot of people who read or listen to podcasts and they start thinking differently. But I realized that I wasn't anywhere close to what I wanted in my practice. Like, I didn't understand marketing that well. I didn't understand financials or metrics. I didn't understand systems. Like, I knew how to do what I was trained to do.
Right.
That was, I knew how to care for people.
Hmm.
And what I began to realize is my coach started to ask me questions around my business, like quizzing me around my business. And I really didn't have great answers for him. He was like, "Well, what are the key metrics that are important to know whether your business is doing great?" I said, "How much money's in the bank?" They're like, "Yeah, no."
Yeah. Right.
They said, "What is your strategy of generating new, potential clients and converting into clients?" I went, I don't know.
Hmm.
Uh, just hoping word of mouth. So as he started asking me questions, it got me to think differently about looking at my business as a business. Because even though it had the letters LLC, it was still the Jamey Schrier show.
But you were succeeding. I mean, so why did a part of you say, I can't argue with the guy, but do I really need this? I mean, look at me. I'm growing. Did that, or why did you say this guy's right versus, he might be right, but whatever?
Well, at the time, Carl, I wasn't succeeding.
Oh,
This was in the beginning. This was a few years after the honeymoon period when things started to really get stressful,
got it.
when my income was up and down depending on the time of the year. When
Mm,
referrals would be, "I'm the greatest in the world," to, "Where is everyone? Honey, we're gonna have to eat ramen noodles." I
mm,
mean, it was it was an emotional roller coaster, which business can be an emotional roller coaster, all of us.
mm-hmm,
And I just, looked in the mirror and I said, "Is this how it's supposed to be? Is
mm,
this why I started my business?" So I think asking questions and being really honest with yourself is, for me, where it started. And then when I started asking someone who wasn't in the minutia that I was, he wasn't emotionally tied. He had expertise in helping people build businesses.
mm-hmm,
That really started me to get thinking differently because he was asking me different questions. I could only ask the questions that were in my head.
mm-hmm,
He was asking questions that I never would have thought of.
mm-hmm.
So by asking me those questions, it got me to think differently about my business and take on a different perspective, which then led to different solutions.
Right,
The solutions then led to different results.
right.
So that outside perspective was my first experience with coaching, not knowing at the time that I would eventually go into having a coaching business. But
Mm-hmm,
that is what inspired me, and realized, look, there's a lot of quote solutions out there. There's a lot of shiny solutions and objects out there.
yeah,
But how do you know which one is right? How do you know the one you're choosing is actually what you need at this time?
yeah.
Well, not having someone that can guide you think through this, you could be making a terrible mistake, even though the company you're hiring is great. It's
Mm-hmm,
just not what you need.
mm-hmm.
So, how you're thinking about your business is critical because that could determine the success of your business.
Yeah,
And most of us are trained to solve problems, but solve problems in a different way. So
yeah.
that was my first experience to answer your question specifically, that was my first experience into, man, how I think about anything is how I do everything,
Hmm.
because your thoughts lead you to the actions you take. If you keep thinking the same way as the famous, Albert Einstein said, is, definition of insanity is, doing the same thing, expecting different results. We don't even realize as business owners, we're doing the same thing again and again. We think it's different because
Yeah.
it might be a different strategy, but it's the same stuff.
Hmm.
And yet, so many of us are still not happy in our business. We're almost resenting our business. We're
Hmm.
not making anywhere near the money that we want, and we're working our butts off to do it.
Yeah.
When is that going to magically end? When is it going to really be different?
Hmm.
It's when we completely change how we think about our business, and that is hard to do by yourself.
Yeah.
We know what we know.
Yeah. And, you you made me think because, what I was originally going to say to you is, so it was this massive amount of pain that you were going through where you said, something's got to be, is this really the way, is this the way it's supposed to be? But then you had to have said, not only do I not want it this way, I have some, even if it's a vague picture of what I would like it to be. And until it seems to me that until you get to the, I would like it to look like this, whereas today it looks like that. If you don't have the, I would like it to look like this, then you can make improvements, but you're never going to know if it's what you want because you haven't even defined it, right? So even if you have to work with somebody else, it's like if you have a goal and you're pointing towards a goal, that makes choosing your help everything a lot more clear, it seems, than running away
Yeah,
from
I
bad
mean,
versus running towards good, I guess,
depending on how much you're in the weeds. I've spoken to, like you've mentioned before, I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of practice owners, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people don't know what they want because they don't believe it's possible. So why even
Yeah.
bother putting
Right.
it
And
out?
so you need to call you to help them. What is it? What do I want?
Well,
Help me
sometimes
figure out
when
what I
I'm
want.
Yeah, well, sometimes when I work with them, like we'll always do an idea like, what's your vision,
Hmm.
right? What do you want? And sometimes I say, why don't you start with what you don't want? Because
Hmm.
sometimes it's just easier to start there.
Yeah.
Again, when someone asks me what you want, what I want, when they first asked me this, I probably said something like, you know what? I don't know. What I don't want is to work 70 hours a week, barely making ends meet, not spending any time with my wife and my kids, and burning myself out on both ends.
Hmm.
That's what I don't want. What do you
Hmm.
want? I don't know. Just
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like I
That's where it
was so
starts. Absolutely.
that's where it starts. So it's
Yeah.
okay to say what you don't want.
Yeah.
But at some point, you have to have something that you're moving towards.
Right.
So that then turned in for me is saying, you know what? I want to not have to show up on Monday mornings to the office.
Hmm.
That was it. It was a very clear goal
Hmm.
that I knew in order to do that, and of course, I still wanted to make money and have a
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, I needed to get myself out of the day to day,
Hmm.
hire and train a great team, monitor everything with metrics, have systems in place, have marketing in place, have
Hmm.
front desk, have billing and collections. I knew in order to just achieve that one thing, all of these things would need in place. But that one thing was my goal.
Hmm.
I didn't realize it was going to take me 9 years to achieve it,
Well,
but I'm a slow learner. And fortunately, since then, I've learned how to help people achieve it in a lot less time than
yeah.
that. But I think, this idea of mindset as money, of course, mindset is money. What do you go to school for? To
Hmm.
learn. To learn what? To how to think and treat people.
Hmm.
Well, you're then taking that same mindset of having to learn how to treat, evaluate, and take care of people. And somehow that mindset is how to build a business around treating people. When have you learned that part?
Yeah.
And I've done surveys, most people read a book or
Yeah.
listen to a podcast. And it's like, okay, well, reading a book is nice, listening to the podcast is nice, but then have you done anything with it? Have
Hmm.
you taken action? Most people have not.
No.
So you're trying to build and grow something that you don't have the perspective around or the experience to do, but yet you expect certain results and you get disheartened when you don't get them.
Hmm.
And then you give up and say, I've tried everything. It's the insurance company's fault. It's the therapist. They want too much money. You start to blame because we have to justify to ourselves. If not, we'll feel even worse.
Hmm.
So a lot of this is an ego check of, it's not that you're not capable of building an amazingly successful business, just how you pictured it. It's
Hmm.
that you need to learn how to do it, which means you got to let go of the ego a little bit and
Yeah.
admit to yourself. And this is where the real mental shift comes. Carl, I don't know how to do this. Can you
Hmm.
help?
Hmm.
Those are tough words to say. We have a
Yeah.
pretty strong ego as a collective profession.
Yeah. It's funny, and nobody, because they're so in the weeds, right? It took you 3, 4, 5 more years to learn your clinical craft. Um, can you acknowledge it might take more than a book to learn the business craft? And so, but nobody's, I'm sure I'm guilty of something similar. And you started to sort of hint at this, but it leads nicely into the next question. I'm curious, what are some examples of like limiting beliefs you find with clients when you start working with them?
Number one, if I work harder, results will eventually come.
Hmm.
That is a massive limiting belief. If I work harder,
Yeah.
that goes along the lines of, if I treat people longer, that determines quality care.
Mm.
If I work with people longer, that is more valuable.
Hmm.
And the reason I say those, even though they're clinically oriented, because there's so many people out there choosing their business model, their treatment model based on those limiting beliefs.
Mm.
The limiting belief is time equals value.
Yeah.
I learned this. Here's a quick story. I learned this many years ago. My first job was in a hospital. And I remember being, with 15 other therapists. I was the only male therapist, and I was brand new. Some of them been there 20, 30 years. And at the time, the hospital was 1 an hour. And I would go to see my patient. And I was
Hmm.
brand new. I really didn't know what I was doing. I knew how to stretch them and do some basic things.
Right.
And then as I get it, started, spending another year, 2 years there, it was still 1 an hour. And I realized that the more efficient I became, the smarter I became, and with learning how to treat people, I would be able to actually treat them in less time.
Hmm.
But because the rules of the game was, we're paying you for time, which is the insurance model, we're paying you for time, you have to just start making up stuff to do because they expect you to bill X number of units,
Units an hour.
X number of units per hour.
Got it.
So then I started investing a ton of my time into becoming a great clinician. I spent tens of thousands of dollars in all kinds of courses. I went back and got my doctorate. I got more initials after my name and all this other stuff. But insurance companies didn't pay me anymore. Someone that was a brand new grad that didn't know anything would get paid more than me because they'd spend more time trying to figure out what to do, whereas I could treat someone in 10 minutes and get them feeling better immediately.
Hmm.
So you tell me, as someone that has an hour model, let's say, that's very good at their craft, you tell me how spending more time with someone is actually more valuable to them because they don't want to be there longer than they have to.
Yeah.
We do it because many of us were born into this model of time and money, which insurance company created.
Hmm.
Medicare created.
Yeah. They don't
We did
care.
not create, an entrepreneur certainly didn't create it.
Yeah.
So that is a huge limiting belief because some of us are basing our entire business model around this and it doesn't work.
Hmm.
I've seen so many people go broke, especially if they accept insurance and they're doing every hour or
Yeah.
45 minutes and making $80 a visit. It
Hmm.
doesn't work. Now, if
Hmm.
you do it, cash based and you charge $150, $200, that could work.
Yeah.
So that limiting belief around this time equals value,
Hmm.
time equals quality, is the worst limiting belief that we have taught ourselves as an industry.
Yeah. Output equals value. Results equals value. Whether it's 5 minutes or 55 minutes, right? But yeah, when you're pre-programmed
Value,
so long without things stopping, why is this? Like you did.
Carl, value is in the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah.
We think value is what we think, not what our ideal client thinks.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to realize that value might be speed of service.
Mm-hmm.
Like Amazon, they could think, hey, value is, making sure that you're really spending time to order your product, making sure that it comes, that we get it to you in a week or two. No. The less time I can click a darn button, the better.
Yep.
Gas stations figured it out. Like I'm old here. I remember gas stations did not have a place where you can go to the pump and actually put a credit card.
Sure. Me
You
too.
had to visit the little person in the window.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, who the heck wants to talk to the
No.
person in the window? Nobody does.
And what person in the window wants to talk to us?
They
Nobody.
don't want to talk either.
No.
Then they realize, what if we just automated the whole thing at the pump?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody had to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we could use the inside a way to generate additional money by offering other snacks like a 7-Eleven would.
Right.
So they redid the whole thing. That was more profitable to them, yet it was also more valuable to the end user, which is us.
Right.
So we as therapists have to realize that we have to look at what the experience we want for our people. We don't look at things like that. We
Yeah.
look at it from our experience only and what we think is valuable, which is the worst you can do. I know you as a marketer, that is not where we start the conversation.
Mm-mm.
So
Mm-mm.
those are massive limiting beliefs. I think other beliefs is making money is bad.
I've had a few guests. One of them said, in medical school, they never said the words, making money is bad and dirty and ugly. But man, oh man, did you get the message loud and clear.
You got the message.
Incredible. Incredible.
You got the message.
Yeah.
You are good. Making money is bad. So we have to tear down the people that make money. You know what's funny? The university that I went to, they ask me for money all the time because they know I've made a decent amount.
Mm-hmm.
See, those people that made money, especially in private practice, they're the ones that are supporting the damn programs. They're the ones everyone's come to because the entrepreneurs can write checks.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones that are building schools and supporting them. It's our duty to make money. Now, you don't have to be an asshole to make money. You don't have to drive a 500 series Mercedes if you don't want. You see, who you are isn't how much money you make. Money just reveals your character. It doesn't define it. So who you are is who you are. But guess what? I guarantee if I polled every single person that is working for you, the business owner right now, and said, do you want your owner to make money or to be dead broke? What do you think they would say?
Make money.
Why?
Because it's job satisfaction and guarantee for me.
Selfishly,
yes,
they want stability and security. Yes. And they don't get it for you running around like your head with like a chicken with their head cut off, worrying and freaking out every 2 seconds about money, about this and about that. They want you to calm, strong leader who is, yes, making money, but doing it because you're delivering a great service as deemed by the people coming in and supporting your staff and providing what they need, what's important to them. That thinking will change your entire business.
And if you think your bright face when it's all behind the curtains falling apart is not visible to them, think again, because they watch the leader and they'll suspect. And even if they're wrong, now the chatter starts and it's just not good.
I used to fake it all the time. You see, I used to think my staff, here's another limiting belief, my staff doesn't care. I'm the only one that cares about my business and all they want to do is get paid, clock in, clock out, and do the minimum. You see, that's a false belief. Now, that may seem to be true, especially nowadays. There are some people that portray that mindset, especially what schools are doing. But you know what? You believing that is going to force you to go down a very adversarial path with your staff.
Yeah.
When I started looking at my staff and appreciating them more, showing gratitude towards them, and realizing that, hey, not everyone believes in what I do, but I'm going to draw a line in the sand. I don't care how desperate I might be for therapists,
Hmm.
but I'm going to draw a line in the sand, Carl, and I'm going to say, here's what we believe in. Here's what we're about. Here's where we're going. And here's what you can expect when you join us. I don't need 1 million people to join us. I just need 1 or 2 good ones.
Hmm.
So changing that mindset that all therapists, all they care about, all these new Gen Zers or whatever they are, all they care about is sucking you bone dry, making the most money. That mindset is going to keep you broke and keep you working your ass off because no one's going to want to work for you.
Hmm.
Because they said, like you said it, dude, they sense that.
Hmm.
It's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And people are smart. They
Yeah.
sense the angst. They
Yeah.
sense the sarcasm. They sense the rolling of the eyes.
Yeah.
So
They
those are just
sense
a
it.
handful of the
Yeah. The big
false beliefs.
ones. How does someone start to turn the corner on these beliefs?
You know, that's a great question. I think being honest with yourself, looking in the mirror and saying the following words, you don't know what the F you're doing.
Yeah.
But if you have the courage and the grit and the belief, you
Yeah.
can do this.
Yeah.
There's not a lack of people in this country that need your help. In fact, there is infinitely more people who need what you do than do what you do. So there is no such thing as competition.
Hmm.
There's infinitely more people. The problem is with your way of thinking and doing right this minute, it is not serving you, your
Hmm.
staff, or your community. But you can learn it. You're
Yeah.
some of the smartest people on the planet. You can learn it, but you can't learn it with the ego that you have. You can't learn it saying, I've already done everything. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to have a level of vulnerability. You see, I believe vulnerability is power, not weakness.
Hmm.
And when I looked in the mirror and said, Jamey, you don't know what you're doing, but I don't care what it takes. I will learn it. I will become a student of business.
Hmm.
I will learn to become less of a clinician and more of an owner who owns a physical therapy practice. And I made that commitment and I put the same amount of zeal and effort and excitement into learning my business and my craft
Hmm.
than I did learning the craft of physical therapy. And when I started doing that, things started happening.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
put that level of investment mentally, financially, and time-wise into doing that. So that's where you have to begin, and then find someone that can help you.
Hmm.
Find a coach, find someone that can guide, find a program that you trust. You can't do it alone.
Hmm.
Why would you do it? You didn't do it alone learning. Can you imagine going to PT school and all that was there is just a bunch of books
Yeah.
with a syllabus that said what to do?
Yeah.
Can you imagine not having other students and professors? Can you imagine if you had to do it alone? That's what's happening now.
Yeah.
We are alone out there in our business. Our staff doesn't care really about us. They care about them. Our,
Hmm.
our, our clients don't care. They care about them.
Hmm.
We're alone here. So that's the place to really start is to have that conversation with yourself.
Yeah.
Try to get a picture of what you want, certainly get a picture of what you don't, and start making the steps towards it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's reading a book and starting small. Do that, listening to this podcast, and just getting inspired to take action.
Hmm.
But it's going to be, I'm not going to say this road's going to be easy because it's not. But you know what? At least it's going to lead somewhere to something you really want and can be proud of. Because right now, there's so many people out there just quietly in this desperation state, just struggling,
Hmm.
just slowly drowning. And
Hmm.
that's what kills me because there's so many people that need our help out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I forget where I learned it. It was probably my parents. Asking for help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. How are you supposed to know everything? It's totally illogical. The idea is dead on arrival that any one person can know everything they need to know, can learn it eventually. But yeah, it takes priority just like anything else. Really
It's hard
cool.
though, man. I mean,
Yeah.
think about this, Carl. Think about this psychological, impact. You went to school,
Mhm.
you have a degree.
Mhm.
I imagine if you go to school and have a degree, you have to have pretty good grades to do it
Mhm.
in our academic institutions.
Right.
So all of us have gotten good grades. That means you've learned how to succeed. You haven't learned how to fail. And you've been praised by everyone of how good you are. But of course, the people that are praising you or the people that buy in that, this higher level of grades is everything. Then you
Mhm.
go into business. Your grades don't matter.
Mhm.
What matters is your bank account, your time, and your happiness.
Mhm.
And then you fail and you haven't learned how to fail,
It's true. It's
right?
really true.
So now what do? You've learned how to succeed your whole life. You haven't learned how to fail, and you definitely haven't learned how to really ask for help because you've been so darn successful.
Mhm.
And now you're in a place where you continue to fail and to struggle, but you feel bad about asking for help
Mhm.
and you're not sure how to handle the failure.
Mhm.
This is the deeper level of issue that all of us in smart professions,
Mhm.
such as physical therapy, accounting, medical, mental health, and all these other professions
Right.
that do not know how to handle this.
Mhm.
That's the bigger problem. It's
Mhm.
not because there's not people out there that can help you. There is. There's
Mhm.
people like myself and a lot of other people like me.
Yep.
And it's not that you're not capable, and there's not that there's lack of people. It's we haven't been trained for this.
Mhm.
We have to make a decision if we're willing to do what it takes to turn this thing around. And I promise you it can happen.
Yeah.
I've seen it and experienced it hundreds and hundreds of times with people from all over the country, all different backgrounds, all different disciplines.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, I hadn't thought about the what's it take to fail and what's it feel like. It's painful. It's happened a couple times for me. And you're better off for it now. Great story today. Painful when you're living it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple of questions I ask every guest kind of in to sort of wrap up. Um, the first one is anything you think I should have asked you, but I didn't, anything else you think we need to bring to the forefront here?
Um, I don't think so. I love talking about the deeper thing here. And I
Hmm.
think your questions really brought out the deeper play. Mentality is money, mindset is money. It's
Hmm.
more than money. Mindset is happiness.
Hmm.
Mindset is well-being. How we think determines our actions.
Hmm.
But you can't think your way to actions. You can act your way to a new way of thinking, but it takes
Hmm.
implementation and execution.
Yeah.
And I think that if people walk away with anything from this, they walk away with, maybe we don't know everything. And maybe
Hmm.
the way I've been doing it isn't what I want because the results I'm getting.
Yeah.
What if I took a different approach to this? So I think in that context, man, I really love this conversation. I think
Yeah. Thank you.
spot
Me
on.
too. Yeah. It's so many things about it. It starts with you. It starts with you. Um, so sometimes the other question is sort of the preamble to it is sometimes people want to make a change, but they get stuck at the starting line. Are there one or two even simple things you could recommend to somebody who's listening who, we've caught their attention and like, I'm on board, but where do I start? Anything you could tell them just to nudge them so they can start movement? Is it go to the library and
Yeah,
find a book, or is it sign up for your newsletter? What do you think? Look in the
yeah.
mirror.
So I created a quiz called the Practice Quiz. And what the quiz does is I ask very specific questions around your business. Doesn't matter how big or small your business is.
Hmm.
It's not a lot of questions. It'll take you a few minutes to fill it out.
Hmm.
But what the quiz does is help you think about your business.
Hmm.
Think differently about your business. That's the point of the quiz. It asks you a question that you would not ask yourself and have you rate on a scale from 1 to 5. How well would you rate this in your business? And I strategically ask questions around 7 different areas of your business. That would be the place that I would start because after you take the quiz, I also then give you things that you can specifically do based on the answers of your quiz.
Okay.
Now, your job, of course, now knowing that is to take that first step and put them in play.
Hmm.
So the quiz is that first step to say, all right, well, let me get an idea of what's going on in my business. That quiz is pretty darn accurate too of where you are if you're honest about that.
Okay.
So I would take the quiz. It's called the PT Practice Quiz. You can find it. We'll put the link in the show
Yeah,
notes. You
please.
can also find it on my website,
Hmm.
practicefreedomu.com.
Hmm.
It's right on the homepage. But we can leave the quiz. Take the quiz. Get some feedback and some specifics you can do, and just take one step.
Hmm.
Just one step. And of course, if you want some help in looking at your business, I'm happy to have a conversation with you as
Right.
well. If, of course, the timing is right, you
Right.
can reach out and set up a time, which I'm sure you'll have the link to do that as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. Cool. Thank you, Jamey. This has been awesome. You said it earlier. It's lonely out here as the owner, as the entrepreneur. And that means that, your own mindset becomes even more pivotal than it probably does for many other types of people. And so it's if it's not right, it's got to get right. So this hopefully has opened some eyes for a few people.
Yeah, I'll say this in closing. People look at my success. Of course, you're always an overnight success. That took 10 years in the
9 years
making.
overnight, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It took me 9 years in my PT business from the moment I committed. In this business, it's taken me 9 or 10 years in the coaching business because as a coaching company, we're in the top 1% of coaching companies now. And again, I'm a slow learner.
You're
It
a
took me
thorough learner. Let's just
yeah.
rephrase that to you're a thorough learner.
But the difference is people say, what was my secret? My secret is I hired a coach in both instances to help me.
Mm,
I haven't had the same coach, but I've hired coaches. I've hired experts that can help me get where I want to go faster with less pain,
mhm,
less trials and tribulations. And I invested in that coach, but what I was really doing, investing in myself to do it.
mhm,
That's what I did. I wrote a check, invested in the person, and then I made a commitment to myself to do the work, no
mhm,
matter how uncomfortable, no matter how, awkward or whatever. And what I've made a commitment to do the work. It wasn't some magic strategy or some magic bullet.
right.
I invested in someone to help me and guide me, and I made a commitment to do it. And every single person that has done those two things, at least the people that we have worked with and other people I've talked to that have worked with, maybe other coaches,
Sure.
have done the same thing. Nobody does this on their own. And if they're
Mhm,
telling you that, they're lying.
yeah.
Everyone does this with help. The question is what you want and the fear that's in front of you to get it greater than the fear of not having it?
Mhm,
Is what you want greater than the fear of not getting it? If what you want is greater, you'll do it. If the
mhm,
fear of what if is greater, you won't.
yeah. Perfect. Excellent words. Excellent sort of nice punctuation mark on our conversation. Thank you so much for that. And again, thanks for coming on Practice Care and sharing these thoughts. Really, 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 you've opened my mind too. Really appreciated it. So Jamey Schrier, Practice Freedom U. We're going to get all the contact info and those other links that you talked about into the show notes for your episode. Anybody who wants to find you, that's a good avenue to do it. Couple of points before we wrap up. First, if you're someone like Jamey or I that seek to help private practice owners, or if you're a private practice owner yourself, either way, if you've got some experience on the business side of private practice, we want you to come on Practice Care and tell the world about it. In the show notes for Jamey's episode and every episode, there's a link, a couple of clicks, tell us what's on your mind so we can get you scheduled as soon as possible. And finally, we do a new episode every week on Practice Care. Subscribe so that you can stay up to date. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, all the major platforms. Subscribe. That way you'll get notified every week when a new episode drops. Thanks very much. And until next time.